Welcome to a new edition of our show titled Speak of Africa. We thank you very much for coming to this show today. We have so much news that we want to share with you today. There is so many events happening which should be of interest to people who love Africa. To begin, we would like to share some sad news that happened to us on April 2nd. We are talking about the death of Mrs. Winnie Mandela. Mrs. Winnie Mandela died on April 2nd. The news of her death hit us very hard. We really salute her as a pioneer of African female liberation. We've really lost a lioness. We should remember her because she has done so much for Africa. She is the mother of South Africa. In fact, when I look at the history of Winnie Mandela, I'm tempted to say, without Winnie Mandela, probably there would not have been a Nelson Mandela. It may sound like an oxymoron, but let's make this clear. Mrs. Mandela was a very charismatic leader. She is what we normally refer to as, behind every great man, there is a great woman. Behind the great man of Nelson Mandela, there was Winnie Mandela. Most freedom fighters go to jail or they are killed, and the world forgets about them. In the case of Nelson Mandela, the flame of revolution was kept alive because of the charisma and the toughness of the woman we know as Winnie Mandela. Certainly, she is not a saint, but we have to admit that with what she had, she did a whole lot more to contribute to the African liberation struggle. Single-handedly, she galvanized the whole world to support the cause of South Africa. And that's how Nelson Mandela became free and even emerged as the president of the new South Africa. We think Winnie Mandela is really the icon of female liberation. We are not feminists, but we support this lady because she supported issues that are of importance to women. She showed that the fact that she was a woman could not really limit her as a supporter of human rights for blacks in South Africa. So let us recognize her. Wordsworth Longfellow, an American poet, once said, "Lives of great men remind us we can make our lives sublime, leaving footprints on the sands of time." The same applies to the life of Mrs. Winnie Mandela. She has left so many indelible marks on the sands of time. We can really see what she's done, and we can even look at her legacy. On the 2nd of April, after I received the news of her death, I started watching her interview on Jeune Afrique. When I watched this interview, I read everything, and I was just reflecting on her legacy after I read the material that she shared with the journalists of Jeune Afrique. She was really worried about the legacy, Nelson Mandela's legacy and her own legacy. She even put forth ideas concerning mistakes that were made when Nelson Mandela and his group were really negotiating for freedom. Certainly, whatever they call a rainbow nation did not really materialize. Blacks are still not free. Blacks are not free politically, blacks are not free economically, and blacks are not free socially. The white folks still hold the monopoly on wealth in South Africa, which is why Mrs. Mandela has been championing the issue of land redistribution to blacks in South Africa. She has also been championing the whole idea of racism. South Africa is still a very racist country. Okay? Apartheid may be gone, but South Africa is not really a rainbow nation, because when you look at the rainbow, there is no color like white and there's no color like black. And that's what Mrs. Mandela told us in that interview. So we really salute her for being such a great lady. She was really charismatic, and I think we can really learn many lessons from her so that we can keep the flames of revolution alive. Okay, now that we're done with South Africa, we're going to move to Ethiopia. We covered Ethiopia a few weeks ago on this show, and we're really talking about the need for the leaders of Ethiopia to become reform-minded. Well, a few days ago, we received news that the powers that be in Ethiopia have nominated a new prime minister, Mr. Abiy Ahmed. We understand that he is reform-minded, but he has his work cut out for him because there are so many changes that the country needs. If he's going to heal the nation of Ethiopia, he needs to really be a true reformer. Some of the ideas we had mentioned on our show, in fact, we mentioned the need to befriend Eritrea. The new Prime Minister of Ethiopia touched on that subject. There is also the need to free a lot of political prisoners. During the state of emergency in Ethiopia, so many people, more than 1,100, were arrested for no good reason. So these people need to be free. In fact, even U.S. Senator Rubio of Florida has been championing the cause of freedom fighters in Ethiopia. So please, Mr. Abiy Ahmed, as a new prime minister, make sure that you free all the political prisoners. We need healing in Ethiopia. If this happens, we're going to be happy with what is happening with our neighbors. We are very, very happy that you touched on some of the points we mentioned during our last show on Ethiopia. Make friends with Eritrea. Stop fighting. Stop killing the people. So we want peace to return to Ethiopia. Next, I'm going to move to some form of happy news. So don't say we always tell you stories of gloom about Africa. The next story that we're going to share with you has to do with Botswana. Ian Khama just accepted something that never happens in Africa. He decided to step down and allow for his successor to take over as president of Botswana. In fact, we've already spent much time on Botswana in the past. When we organized the Second African Nation Awards, we gave the award to Botswana. We like the democracy that is taking place in Botswana, and we saw that as a beacon of democracy in Africa. So we salute Ian Khama for making room for peaceful transition in Botswana. We hope the other African countries that are having elections in 2018 can emulate Botswana. Instead of having people who want to stay in power for life like Paul Biya of Cameroon, we need leaders who believe in democracy. If we have such leaders who care about their people, then we're not going to be having a whole lot of problems. We don't want leaders like Al-Sisi from Egypt. Egypt was one of the countries that gave us the Arab Spring. But today, Al-Sisi has polluted the waters of the Arab Spring. Right now, the Egyptians cannot really enjoy the freedom that they fought so hard and died for. Al-Sisi, like a typical African autocrat, has grabbed the power from the people and is ruling the country as a dictator. He first deposed a president who was democratically elected in Egypt, Mohamed Morsi. We're not really agreeing with all the policies of former President Mohamed Morsi. What we're saying is, for the sake of democracy, we do not like the way Al-Sisi is maltreating Mohamed Morsi. We understand that Mohamed Morsi is seriously sick, but Al-Sisi doesn't want him to get medical treatment. We think that's wrong. Al-Sisi has been beating political opponents. He won a sham election with no competitor. How can he really say that's an election? That's a sham. And we want the world to know that Al-Sisi is not really a legal leader of Egypt. Next, we move to Kenya. Kenya is really the top touristic destination in Africa. When we look at wealth, we like the way Kenya has really developed its touristic industry. So we've been asking other African countries to emulate the example of Kenya to attract tourists, because most African countries have land which can really attract a lot of tourists. But we think Kenya has done the best job to attract tourists. As we say, to every cloud, there's a silver lining. And the silver lining in Kenya is that the tourism industry has also attracted negative elements. If you look at what is happening in Kenya, they make over $100 million US on tourism, but there is a sad side to it. And this is the problem of wife renting. Most of the tourists come to Kenya, especially around Diana Beach in Kwele. They ask for time with the wives of the locals. The locals are very, very poor. The Kenyan government has not been able to do much for these people, so they end up living by prostituting their wives. They encourage their wives to go out with tourists and sleep with these tourists so that they can make money to live on. Life is so hard around the Diana Beach area to the point that most of the husbands acquiesce to the idea of their wives going out and prostituting with these tourists from the world. So we think this is not good because already there are signs of the rise of HIV in this part of the world in Kenya. So the HIV problem is growing, and we are asking the Kenyan government to do something to put an end to this problem. And we're drawing attention to it because the people are really dying from HIV because of the problem of the tourists sleeping with the wives of people. Second, this is really a degrading practice. When you start giving your wife away to some other person to sleep with her, it just means that you've really lost human dignity. You don't feel like you're a human being anymore. So this is very, very callous. We ask the government of Uhuru Kenyatta to look into this problem. And we're telling him this is around Diana Beach in Kwele. So go look at this problem and try to solve it. Next, we're going to move to Ghana. A few months ago, we were very, very happy when the new Ghanaian president invited the French president Emmanuel Macron to his country and told the world plainly that he doesn't want to be a beggar. Curiously, we were surprised when we started seeing many Ghanaians marching, protesting against the government. They do not want their country to be for sale. The Ghanaian government had signed an accord with the U.S. military. For $20 million, the U.S. military is going to have unlimited rights to Ghanaian space. So the people were really protesting because they felt that the accord that was ratified by the parliament was not really a good one. It was not really good for the sovereignty of Ghana. Ghana is a new democracy. Ghana has been doing many things well. Why is it that a president who has been talking about independence and self-reliance is relying on American money to sell the sovereignty of his country? This is making many Ghanaians mad and really angry, and they have been taken to the streets and protesting every day. So when we look at this, we say that Ghanaians, think twice. Your leaders are not really doing a good job. They are taking bribes and selling your sovereignty. So this should end. The same thing that the Ghanaians are doing has been happening also in Djibouti. Djibouti has a very old dictator who is actually the landlord of Western powers. All the Western powers, the United States, now China, have become tenants of Djibouti. Each of these world powers tries to set up a base, a military base in Djibouti. Because of the proximity of Djibouti to some troubled spots like Somalia, so most of these Western powers want to use that area to set up their military bases. When this happens, it means that Djibouti doesn't really have any sovereignty. These countries can decide to overthrow the leader when they choose because they have the military might. But we know that in Djibouti, the leader who has been there, Saleh, is a colonialist. He doesn't really care about his country. He just wants to get money. This guy is selling his country for US dollars, and he has been doing this for a long time. When you look at Camp Lemonnier, it's a place where most of the foreign powers build their bases, and they set up all type of plans to target Africa. And what is happening is destruction. There is nothing positive when you surrender your sovereignty and you take your land and give it to foreigners to build bases. Before it was France and the United States, now comes China. China is even a bigger colonial power than anybody expects. So we think that Djibouti is doing the wrong thing. And what Djibouti is doing should be corrected. It's not good. Okay? Next, we're going to take you now to Nigeria. We're really doing a new sweep. We're going to cover a whole lot. Nigeria has always featured in our news sweep because it's an important country in Africa. Today, we're going to shed light on the issue of Boko Haram. We've been telling you that the Nigerian president, Muhammadu Buhari, has not been doing a good job in handling the problem with Boko Haram. The events of the last few days have also proven us right again. Over 18 soldiers were killed by Boko Haram. So how can you tell us that you're dealing with the problem of Boko Haram? It appears this leader has failed. As Dr. Obasanjo says a few days ago, you cannot really refuse that you fail. It's more like insanity. Okay? Accept blame and say, yes, I don't know what to do. Stop justifying your failure. When you justify your failure, you're making yourself the laughter of the whole world, a laughing stock. Okay? That's why we say it is time for Muhammadu Buhari to step down because he doesn't really know what to do. In addition to the problem of Boko Haram, Mr. Buhari has time to parade with a beautiful model, Naomi Campbell. We don't know what that really does for him. Maybe it makes him look handsome. But we just think that it's a wrong time when Nigeria has so many problems and he's looking for photo ops with pretty models like Naomi Campbell. Rascal should be spending time with Naomi Campbell, but not a president like Mr. Muhammadu Buhari. So when we look at this, we just laugh. He doesn't have time to deal with Boko Haram, but he has time to take nice pictures with a pretty model. Well, Obasanjo is really mounting a coalition that definitely is going to change the face of politics in Nigeria. The APC and the PDP may be history, the way we look at what is happening, because Baba is a solid guy. He's really working hard to make sure that Nigeria should have new leadership. For so long, Nigeria keeps recycling old people. It is as if the young people don't have intelligent people who can be president. So we think Nigeria needs to emulate France. Look at the young person who is the leader of France. He's just like a baby. If we can get a young person with vigor to be president in France, why can we not have the same kind of person to be president in the biggest nation in Africa? That's our challenge to Nigerians. We are urging you to join the Obasanjo dance, okay? Dance with Baba and let us make Buhari a one-time president because it is time for him to go, okay? Next to Buhari is the despot, Paul Biya. Cameroon has really been suffering because of the action of this despot. He is a debonair dictator. He makes you look as if he's a nice guy. But this guy is a killer. And the people are complaining every day. The Anglophone crisis has really opened the eyes of the world to the atrocities of President Paul Biya. We are really seeing what he's doing. We're seeing the havoc the military is committing. And already, even the UN Refugee Agency has really been alarmed when they look at the number of refugees pouring out of the Anglophone zone into Nigeria. The numbers is so large, it's very, very big. Interestingly, even in Yaoundé, where you think there is calm, on Easter Sunday, we were really shocked to see pictures of the bishop offering mass in Kondengi prison. Kondengi prison is like hell on earth. It is located in a poor neighborhood in Yaoundé, not far from Nkondongo. You see former ministers who used to serve the dictator Paul Biya, they are really spending time in prison. And the archbishop was really presenting a sermon just to give salvation to them. Say, please, just be hopeful. Even when you are in jail, just be hopeful that you will see better days. God will forgive your sins. The former prime minister, Inoni Ephraim, was also among the big fish who were in attendance, you look at these people, you look at their past glories, and you really say to yourself, there is no condition that is permanent in this world. Only the Lord, our God, is great. A human being is little. So you may think that you're really doing well today. Just know that God has set his eyes on you. And that's the message we're giving to people who work for Mr. Paul Biya. Your time will come. Your feet shall slide in due time. Okay? As we say in our American sermon. Next, we're going to move now to the issue of African migrants. Since CNN published a story a few months ago, we have decided that it is of utmost importance to shed light on the issue of migrants running away from their countries. Whenever you have countries that are rich, Africa is a rich continent. Yet, people look at us like a poor continent. We are poor because our leaders are very bad. We are experiencing the curse of our ancestors. Our ancestors are really angry to see that our own people are allowing foreigners to steal our resources every day. They give them chicken change, and they take that and pocket it and put the money in Swiss banks, but they leave us in squalor. The average African leader doesn't have a conscience, and which is why our ancestors have cursed us. So we are really feeling that curse. Our youth have lost meaning in life, okay? They don't really see why they should be living in their countries. They are like strangers in their own countries. They are like outsiders in their own countries. So when we look at this, it reminds us of the philosophy of a guy like Albert Camus, an Algerian philosopher. When he looked at life, he looks at it like the absurd. And that's how our youth look at life in most African countries. And can you imagine that our young people are leaving their homes, they are traveling from Somalia to Sudan, then from there they cross into Yemen. Yemen is a war zone. But it is interesting to know that our people are running away from their countries and going to places like Yemen, where there is a civil war. The Arabs are fighting among themselves. You have the Saudis and you have the Iranians. These two power players are taking advantage of the people. So why are we becoming a victim of their power play? If our countries were really good enough, if our countries were really taking care of their youth, these young people will not be running away into harm. Okay? So we want people to know that these leaders are not doing a good job and they need to stop. Similarly, Yemen is not the only place. We also have Israel. Israel, for so long, has been having issues with African migrants. And Israel has decided that they had to deport most of these people. Most of them don't want to be deported. A lot of them are from Somalia, and some of them are also from Eritrea. When you look at these two places, Somalia has been a country that has been lawless for a very long time. Eritrea is run by a dictator, Isaias. So most of these places are not really fertile ground for youth to stay. So they run away to look for greener pastures. When they do this, they are ensnared in a dragnet in Israel. A few days ago, Prime Minister Netanyahu had decided that he would strike a deal with the UN not to send these people back to their countries. Unfortunately, Mr. Netanyahu made a U-turn and did not honor his promises. So what is going to happen to most of these people? They are now stuck in limbo. Okay? So it's really sad when we look at what is happening to Africans in Israel and we ask the world to do something about it. The UN is not really effective whenever anything involves Israel because Israel is supported by the US. We want stuff to end because Africans cannot continue going to foreign land and being abused. And when we look at our people, they are preoccupied by what is happening in their countries. And that's why I say historical occupation. Then, social consciousness. Our people are aware of the dangers of the malaise they find in their environment and they are not happy with it. Okay? Then how do they respond? They are escaping experimentalism. This is the way the people are running away from their problems. As we say, in a world where there is no God, in a world where there's absurdity, you want to run away. So you run away as a form of escapism. In the novels of Albert Camus, the people will go for a swim. And they will go to the sea to try to swim, to run away from their problems. Some people will take drugs. But running away is not really a good solution. The solution is we have to solve our problem. We have to make sure that we are in a country where there is good governance. So we are urging all Africans who are in the US, in China, in Britain, in France, join us to start drawing attention to the plight of African youth everywhere in the world. African migrants are really suffering. Every day when we see the pictures of people trapped in different places, we know the root cause of these problems. They are political, they are social, and they're economic. So our leaders need to know that change is coming because we want things to be different. And if we can do this, it will really change a whole lot of stuff for our fellow Africans. We thank you very much for watching this show. We are sorry. Sometimes people tell us we are very, very shocking. Okay, we did not really intend to shock people, but we are just telling the truth. This show is like the Obasanjo. Obasanjo is a speaking mask from the Ijagams. I come from the Ijagam community. So I see myself as the incarnation of Obasanjo. Obasanjo is a speaking mask. When you wear the mask of Obasanjo, you start speaking Ijagam, which is our language. And that's what I'm really doing here. I'm the Obasanjo who is telling the truth, okay? I don't really intend to shock anyone. I just want us to know what the truth is so that we can make changes for the better. And we thank you very much. So I will ask you for the last time, go to my channel and subscribe. Share this show with your friends. Share, share, and share. In the end, I will tell you, I love you. Let God bless you, okay? Bye-bye.
Hey, yo, Shape, I thought you was gonna take me to this place so I could get my taxes done. You know I'm trying to buy a new house. What's up?
Let's get it on. If you searching for a house, call up my man Prince O'Jones, the best in real estate. Take it from your guy Shape. When I say his services are the best in the states, word is born. He even take care of your tax forms, back refunds. So come, get your business done. Consultations, financial organization, fast processing, no waiting. This man is amazing. The Prince.
Now area code 30